Hi everyone, my name is Kennedy, and I'm going to be talking about genocide and the causes and consequences of genocide. So, what is genocide exactly? I'm sure many of you know it as the systematic killing of a group. While that's not wrong, there's a little bit more to it than that. So, in present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy. So, the acts that I'm about to list, 1 through 5 down below, in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. So, number 1 is killing members of the group. That's kind of a given. Number 2, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of a group. Number 3, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or part. So basically, this is bringing down the quality of life for those individuals. 4, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. And 5, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. This is meaning that they're taking away every reproductive way they can to kill out the group. So if they're preventing births, they're stopping the bloodline. If they're transferring children, they're making it impossible to reproduce and make more of this group that they think is not fit. So here we just have what does genocide look like. I have a couple pictures that I have retrieved. The two black and white ones are pictures that were actually taken during genocide. You can kind of see the distraught feelings within these pictures. You can see the sadness, the fear, everything that is happening in those two pictures is very devastating. You can see the bones that were left behind of the victims who weren't able to move on. They fell victim to genocide. And the top left picture is just a couple of the most prominent genocides that we know of in our history today. So the Holocaust, the Bosnian genocide, the Rwanda genocides, Cambodia, Ukraine, those are some of the most well-known and talked about genocides. So something that separates genocide from, let's say, a mass killing or a shooting or something like that is the 10 stages of genocide. So we're going to go through these very quickly and just kind of break them down. So number 1 is classification. This is giving an us and them mentality. So this is basically just saying we are better and they are not, we're separating us. Number 2 is symbolization. This is giving a symbol or a classification or a name to a certain group. So, for example, the Jewish people in the Holocaust had to wear a symbol on their shirt. They were also identified with stripes in the concentration camps. Number 3 is discrimination, and this is when a dominant group uses something like political power or law to deny the rights of other groups. This could mean that they don't have civil rights, voting rights, or even basic citizenship. Number 4 is dehumanization, and this is when one group denies the humanity of another group. Members are, in their eyes, equal to animals, vermin, or insects, and even diseases sometimes. 5 is organization. Genocide is almost always organized and premeditated. It's usually put in place by the state and has armies and militias to back it. Number 6 is polarizations, and this is basically just when the two groups are split apart. One group is polarized from the other. Number 7 is preparation. Again, it's usually premeditated. Plans are made for the killings of this group that they seem unfit. Number 8 is persecution. Victims are identified and separated out because of their ethnic or religious identity. Number 9 is extermination. This begins quickly, and this is when the killing happens, and it is eventually called genocide. Number 10 is denial, and this is basically just the grievance of what's happened. If you ask anyone that has, been a part of a genocide or was a part of the killing of another group, they will always have that denial, which is a lot of times what separates killings from genocides. Here I received this from actually the History Channel, and this is just the stages of genocide. You can see it's more just in a web instead of a listed out thing, but it's basically the same thing as what we had on the last slide, just laid out different. So a couple examples of genocide are the Bosnian genocide, Rwandan genocide, and the Holocaust. I'm just going to go through these briefly. There are obviously way more than just these three, but these are three of the main ones that I thought I would point out. So the Bosnian genocide, it occurred or started in 1992 when the Bosnian government declared its independence from Yugoslavia. And the Bosnian Serbs targeted the Muslims and the Croatian civilians for their crimes, or not so much as crimes, but what they believed were not fit. This resulted in the Bosnian genocide, and then came 100,000 deaths of these people by 1995. The Rwandan genocide, and this was occurring from April to mid-July in the year of 1994. The Hutu majority in Rwanda murdered 500,000 to 800,000 people of the Tutsi minority. It was brutal, it was horrifying, and it was fast. The international community did little to stop this. As we've talked about in class, it's hard to believe that you can do anything to stop it when it's one of you against a big group. But that fall, the UN expanded the mandate to include International Crime Tribunal for Rwanda as well. So the last one is the Holocaust, and this one is one that we all know about very well. And to Hitler, Jews were an inferior race, and they were thought of as aliens to German racial purity and community. And after years of his rule in Germany, these Jewish people were persecuted, and this is the final solution. This is known as the Holocaust, and this happened during World War II. And these killing centers or concentration camps were all over Poland. And this is where so many Jewish people died in these gas chambers and shootings. And this is all because Hitler did not think that these people were the type of people that deserved to be in his Germany. So here's basically just some pictures to the names. So over on the left is the Bosnian genocide. You can see that the bodies were brutally left behind and not taken care of, as well as the war and the army men and that were taking part in these killings. The Rwandan genocide is up at the top. You can see how many people were dying by those crosses that are stuck in the ground. And then here you can tell those are the people leaving, trying to find hope and a place to be their own person. And then the bottom right is the Holocaust. Here you can see the identifying stripes on the Jewish people. You can see the gas chambers, and you can see just how much polarization and isolation there really is happening. So are there causes for genocide? I think that there are a couple. There's no if this happens, then this happens type of thing. But there are a couple things that I do think can lead to it. I think one of them is racism and cultural intolerance. So people of certain cultures think that they are superior to other cultures. And same thing goes with races. People of certain races think they're superior to other races. The second one is nationalism. And this is the belief that one's nation is superior. Politics, this is, extreme cases of radical regimes that cause major upheaval of society. They want it to be a certain way, and they have that power. So lust of power is one, poverty, and then there is a want to make society better by getting rid of those who have different ideals. This can be polarization, discrimination, whatever you want to call it, and then there's the protection of power. So there are a couple consequences of genocide that I think are important to note. The first one is damaged or destroyed relationships. People on opposite sides of these conflicts tend to not trust each other anymore, and they oftentimes end up hating each other. And this takes a big emotional toll on both sides and oftentimes prevents them from even thinking of working together in the future. I know that in Germany it is often the Holocaust is not even talked about because it's just something that's don't ask, don't tell anymore. Land and property rights. Oftentimes, these kind of disputes can be really difficult to resolve because their land has been destroyed. There's no property lines, there's no anything that can even begin to get them back to where they were before this genocide took place. I think one of the most important ones is the social and psychological problems that can occur, or consequences that can occur. And this can include hostility, fear, distrust, stereotyping, scapegoating. These factors significantly influence the way a conflict is perceived and responded to. These people are going to be scarred for life, and that leads into what the next bullet point is, which is the trauma that these people have to go through. This results when there's physical or psychological abuse, and these people really were psychologically abused, physically abused, mentally abused, and this is going to stick with them. Even, the people that are still alive now are suffering the consequences of the genocide that they lived through. Right here is just a graph depicting war-related trauma. Down at the bottom, we have got the type of trauma they experienced, and then on the left side going up there is the percentage of which these people say, yes, this is how much this impacted me. So for the highest one, it's a familiar person being left behind. For boys, it's 89.3%, and for girls, it's 81.6%. I really think that this graph is really interesting, and something that, if you guys have time, you should take a peek at. These yellow and red spots are just showing where genocide is most likely and has most likely taken place. It's not to say that it hasn't been taken place elsewhere, but it is possible. Is genocide still happening? A number of genocides are still happening around the world, but as you can see, it is declining. I do think that it is important to note that we should still be aware of genocide, and we should still educate ourselves on the topic. It is going down, but it is not going away. And here are my sources. I hope you guys took something from this and you learned a little bit more today.